boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm For Classic and welcome to BenchART and Sun on an Amnesia game, Amnesia Rebirth, developed by Frictional Games and using HPL 3.5 engine, welcomes you to a new horror game where this time you just start in this desert sunny environment. Not too much of an order, eh? Well, don't worry, you will get to it. Alright, so my objective today it was to test if this game would be playable on an Nvidia GT 740M. This is the same graphic card as the GT 920M or the GT 825M. This is the 2GB version. And I decided to take the tests. So, graphics are more or less on minimum, not entirely. Let me show you the settings. So first of all, 720p. I'm using dynamic resolution with a frame rate cap of 30 frames per second because other way around it, the dynamic resolution doesn't work as intended. And as you can see, the settings are in absolutely lowest settings possible. So without dynamic resolution, the game just performs under 30 frames per second, and this is far from being a demanding place in game. As soon as you get into tunnels where there is candles and shadows, well, you can expect the performance to be much worse. So I'm going to re-enable dynamic resolution and apply a frame rate cap of 60. So what happens really is that the dynamic resolution tries to achieve 60 frames per second all the time, and you get these very pixelated looks. So my suggestion it is to keep the dynamic resolution to 30 frames per second, and by doing this you get a perfect smooth 30 frames per second, which is it's not really that good if you are playing with the mouse and keyboard. But not only that, I will take advantage of the dynamic resolution boosting performance to improve texture quality to high, because it fits inside the 2GB of VRAM buffer, use FXAA and use anisotropic filtering set to 4. So that's my recommended setting: 720p, dynamic resolution, 30 frames per second on frame rate, anti-aliasing for on FXAA, I mean texture quality on high, and anisotropic filtering set to 4 times. All the rest of the stuff it is at the lowest. So looking to the requirements, they say that you need to have a GTX 460 or even an Intel HD 630, which is more powerful than our Nvidia in here. 4 gigs of RAM, which I do agree, alright, or an FX CPU or an i3, I mean. So I decided to take the test on a very demanding part of the game at 720p, and I did test with these settings that I did show you off. All settings, high textures, dynamic resolution set to 30 frames per second, and the performance was at 30 frames per second all the time. There was a drop of a small stutter here and there when it was trying to load certain assets of the game, but overall the experience was 30 frames per second. Although, if I decide to put the entire game on low settings, but I disable dynamic resolution, unfortunately the performance it is a mess. So I was only able to get an average of 17, and the minimum I saw it was 9 frames per second. So what I have to say about it is that for this game, you really need to use dynamic resolution, and it is quite noticeable though. It is quite noticeable that the resolution goes under 720p by a large margin. I'm not really sure what type of resolution scale this applies automatically, but I would say something in the line of 50 to 60%, I'm pretty sure of that, because it's quite noticeable. In the sequence over here, it isn't as much noticeable, but as soon as you start to go into caves where there is candles and stuff like that, you really start to notice a big drop in quality, because that's the moments where the game it is more demanding. Although I'm actually happy, because despite all the constraints of playing like this, with the low settings, with dynamic resolution and all that kind of stuff, I'm surprised that we are able to run it. First of all, this engine runs on OpenGL, like it always did. HPL engine always did run on OpenGL since Penumbra, since Amnesia, since Soma. But Soma wasn't running too properly when it was released, I remember that, and I still think that it doesn't run that properly. But fortunately for us, Frictional Games decided to include this dynamic resolution scaling. If they didn't include this, it would be very hard to run this game. So I'm very happy about that. And I'm very happy because it's 2020, and despite this is not a AAA title, it is a type of game and a game that a lot of people do enjoy. And seeing it running in here, it is quite surprising in my opinion, and it is again another game that despite this graphic card it is unsupported for pretty much more than 1 year. It is a game that it does work without any issues, and it runs properly if you do apply the dynamic resolution. So great stuff. But I mean, what about the game? What this game have to offer? Amnesia Rebirth follows the story of Amnesia series, alright? No, shocking, not surprised at all. And they keep the legacy of the Amnesia Dark Descent. I'm not going to talk about A Machine for Pigs, because A Machine for Pigs, despite it's inside the world of Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs was developed by the Chinese Room, so it's not the same developers as this Amnesia or the Amnesian Dark Descent. So, and this is a true successor for the Dark Descent. It's the same developers, and the story actually makes connections to the first game, which is quite interesting. And talking about the story, I think that's where this time around Frictional Games try to go for. It's still an horror game, alright, and you will spend tons of time in the dark and enemies will appear. But I feel that there is a little bit more focus into jump scares sometimes than trying to mess with your mind. They still mess with your minds, with the sounds and visuals all the time, alright? It's still like Amnesia Dark Descent, but they now added a little bit of more jump scares, which it's, oh, sorry for the word, but it is fucked up. And they added much more, but really much more story into it. So now there is story into this game. Our character, it is always talking about how she misses Salim, which seems to be her husband, and her children. So yeah, there is a narrative, a much more stronger narrative into this game than the first Amnesia. So which means that there will be more parts of the map where you can be a little bit more relaxed, like that sequence on the desert at first. But as soon as you get to a darker place, well, prepare yourself, because it's going to be messy. Because of this, not all the people are really satisfied with this game. I mean, they are satisfied, but they really complain about that, because Amnesia Dark Descent, it was fully horror, fully dark all the time. And, well, Amnesia Rebirth have a little bit of more relaxing moments, like I did told you. And some people didn't really enjoy that. Some other people didn't really enjoy the inclusion of more jump scares. So there are a little bit of more complaint. And some other people feel and say that they don't feel as... they are not as immersive in this game as they were with Dark Descent. So there are a couple of complaints in there. So Steam scored it is around 75%. So yeah, it's acceptable. But Metacritic have a much nicer score around 80s. So I still do think it is an awesome game, and for its price, it is definitely amazing. It is $24.99, so it's far from being a full-priced game, none of the less. So Frictional Game continues the trend of not making full-priced games, and they continue to evolve their games. So I think it's awesome. It's really awesome on that regard. But I will leave the decision up to you. So you decide if this game it is for you or not. But what you do know at the moment is that you can play this game as I do, 1080p, maximum settings, 60 frames per second, and enjoy this horror game. So guys, thank you a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Someone's been here. Hello? Anyone? What's in all these places? This is so strange.
I was able to meet them in the park this afternoon after talking to the factory manager at Dinar. A proud moment. Alice has learned to count to 3 with her blocks.
She did. She did. She showed me. In the park. Bracelet. It's glowing again. find anything else. Oh, thank God. This looks promising.